Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of Hoops with Noops. Of course, I am Alex Noops Christensen, and I'm brought to you by the fine folks at FTN Bets. If you haven't signed up already, there's a code down there at the bottom to get you a discount that gets you access to all the picks, the Discord channel that I'll be mentioning a few different times, a bunch of tools, models. There's so much good stuff over there. Be sure to check it out. Thanks for tuning in. Before we get started with my breakdowns of all of today's games, that's right, all 13, be sure that you're subscribed to this channel for all of my content as well as all the other great stuff happening at FTN. Mean Streets is really good. They do a bunch of really good fantasy shows. You're just leaving money on the table if you're not watching Mike Randall's college basketball. A lot of great stuff. And I'd also appreciate it if you gave me a thumbs up and left me a comment to let me know how I'm doing. Now, basketball. First off, happy Monday. I know, nothing too specific, but we're back into the NBA regular season. The in-season tournament is over. We have 13 games tonight, and there's a couple interesting things there. First, a lot of these games are division games, and that means that those are games that teams have played a lot, and several teams have played already before. And some of the most valuable information that you can use while handicapping a basketball game is looking at a previous matchup, and more specifically, the previous spread and closing total. That gives you all the information from the betting markets. Those closing numbers tell you exactly where sharp bettors, big money bettors, and where sports books thought that best number was. You can use that as a jumping off point. You know, if you have the exact same lineup, same situation, awesome. You kind of know what the line should be. But if you have some different players, it's a different rest situation. It's on the road versus at home. Those are great little pieces of information to figure out how much a particular player is or is not worth, how much the market thinks home court advantage is worth. There's a lot of great stuff there, and we'll talk about a couple of those as we go through today. Not all of them, but again, if you're at home handicapping yourself, be sure to go back to those old matchups. Not really even to look at what happened the first game, but look at what the market had decided and try to compare that to where it is today. The other thing of note, again, the in-season tournament is over, and I've pulled all those games out of my model. They're games that were played much more competitively than we're used to, regular season games being. The style was much different. You had stuff like the Boston Celtics intentionally fouling so they could stretch out their lead from 20 points to 30 points. That kind of stuff is not going to happen. You're not going to see teams pushing hard in fourth quarters in games where they're losing by a lot. I think you'll get back to the regular season dynamic we've known for seasons and seasons, where teams are happy to kind of look forward and save themselves a little bit for the next night. So I pulled those out of my data. I will be looking at them occasionally just to see how that goes, but that's the assumption I've made going forward. Would love to hear your thoughts on that. Again, leave a comment down below, but a lot to cover. Again, 13 basketball games, 5 of them I have bets in. So let's get into it. Starting first here with the Indiana Pacers at the Detroit Pistons. Pistons are 7-point underdogs. The total is at 247. And you've heard me talk about the Pistons here before. They are a bad team. Jalen Duran is out tonight, and that makes them even worse. As good as Cade Cunningham is, and he does have a little bit of shooting now that Bogdanovich is healthy and some other guys are back playing, but without Duran, he lacks a rim protector to help him on defense and a pick-and-roll partner that really completes what Detroit wants to do on offense. So I really struggle to see how Detroit is going to play well tonight, how they're going to be able to stay close to this Pacers team. However, one of the hardest things to handicap is how will a team respond to a big moment or before a big moment? This is Indiana's first game since losing the in-season tournament championship and losing it in a pretty embarrassing fashion, in my opinion. The Pacers look scared, timid, not like themselves at all. I've never seen Tyrese Halliburton dribble backwards on offense like he did. The Lakers played a really aggressive style basketball. They brought Anthony Davis far away from the rim, up basically to the three-point line to try to stifle Indiana as soon as they got across half court and keep them from pushing down. Now, if it's anyone that's played basketball or watched knows, what you need to do in that point is slow down your offense, make passes, and try to penetrate. It's hard for a defense, even a great one like the Lakers, to play up that high and aggressively so long, but we never saw that. We saw a lot of hesitant dribbling, a lot of bad passes, and what scared me the most, really good three-point shooters like Buddy Hield, Aaron Naismith, pausing before shooting, and oftentimes not shooting what looked to be wide-open grade three. So how does a team react to that? I expect this Pacers team, they're young, they have good leadership. I think this is going to be a bounce back in the positive way. Some teams will come out of that and we'll see a funk for the next week or so. And if the Pacers are in a funk, we'll know tonight if they lose to the Pacers or this game is even close. And we'll keep that kind of going forward. But that's not what I'm expecting all tonight. This Indiana team, again, looking back at their previous matchup, they were 9.5-point favorites in Indiana. They're 7-point favorites. Now, this game is on the road, so you have a little bit of adjustment there, but Detroit is playing much worse basketball since then. Indiana's been better. There's no Jalen Duran tonight. I had this a 10, almost 11-point game here. So I think maybe the market a little concerned about Indiana's poor performance in that in-season tournament game. But this looks like the ultimate get-right spot, the ultimate bounce-back spot. I love Indiana here tonight. I'm going to lay the 7 points with the Pacers. Next game up, division matchup here, the Miami Heat against the Charlotte Hornets. Two teams that are just a mess, dealing with tons of injuries. The Heat without Tyler Hero, without Bam Adebayo. The Hornets, most importantly, though, without LaMelo Ball. And without LaMelo Ball, what you're left is with a team without really a true point guard, without a lot of passing, and a bunch of athletic wings and forwards that are really great if they have someone that can create and get them the ball. But if they don't, things get stymied pretty easily. And what they've tried to do is go small and push pace, but that doesn't work generally against teams that control pace, play slower, and play good defense. That's the Miami Heat. Even without Bam Adebayo, they still have good defensive players. Obviously, they're not as good on defense without Bam, but they play a good system. They have players that know their style, and they really take the air out of the ball. They're one of the slowest teams in the NBA, and they get teams to slow down with them. So I think we're going to see a slow, ugly game tonight. I thought about playing the full game under, but Miami's offense has been pretty solid. So I'll go back to the well and a look that's been pretty good for us this year. A Charlotte Hornets team total will go under 108.5. I have this closer to 105, 106. And again, barring some sort of 3-point epiphany or some outlier performance where, the Hornets, this is the sound of me knocking on wood, folks. I don't quite jinx myself. But unless the Hornets are going to shoot 55, 60% on a high volume of threes, which, again, seems unlikely to me given the pace, how good Miami is on defense, especially at limiting those three-pointers, I don't see it here. I think the Hornets go under in this game. And again, they've been playing sort of some fun basketball, and they're figuring themselves out a little bit without Ball, but this is not the matchup. It is not tonight. I'll go under 108.5 for the Charlotte Hornets team total. This next game, one of the strangest games on the board, the Denver Nuggets and the Atlanta Hawks. Two teams here. The Hawks, 2.5-point underdogs at home, the total at 242. These are two teams that have really had sort of shifting starting lineups. Jamal Murray has been in and out as he's coming back from an injury. Aaron Gordon's even missed some time. Nikola Jokic is back. Has been dealing with some back spasms, but has been good for about a week. But it's tough to have that kind of turnover. The Hawks as well, they're missing Jalen Johnson, a young player that really was a key to their defense playing at its peak level early. Trae Young has been in and out of the lineup, so a lot of turmoil here, a lot of struggles for me in terms of making this number. At first glance, you think the Nuggets is only 2.5-point favorites in Atlanta. Looks like an easy bet, but they've been bad on the road this year. Generally they're better at home, but this year the difference between home and road has been much wider, I've seen, and it's just a really funky spot. I'm not sure quite how to handicap that game from a full game perspective. I don't really know what we're going to see, but what I do know is the first quarter has a real advantage for the Denver Nuggets tonight, and that's what we're going to bet. Nikola Jokic plays all 12 minutes of the first quarter. That is very rare. There's not a star player or really any other player that I can think of that does that. And it gives Denver a huge advantage in those first 12 minutes. Obviously, the MVP is on the floor, but normally teams line up their substitution pattern. So it's starters against starters, backups against backups. Jokic gets 3, 4, 5 minutes, depending on the team in that first quarter against backups. And the Nuggets really crush those minutes. So I'm going to play the Nuggets to win the first quarter. That's the money line there at minus 122. That means there'll be a push if they tie. So say the score is, 30-30 at the end of the first quarter. That's a push for us. You can play the Nuggets in the first quarter minus half a point, but that's only about minus 110 to minus 15 I'm seeing. And when I price that half a point, it's not actually really worth selling. So I'm happy to take the money line, but minus half a point's fine here. I have the Nuggets about 1.5-point favorites in the first quarter. So a nice look there against a Hawks team that has been really bad in the first quarter. Atlanta has struggled to start games. They've really been a second half team. And again, with that revolving door starting lineup, I don't expect tonight to be any different. So give me Jokic and the Nuggets to win the first quarter. Next game up here, the fourth game that I like tonight, the San Antonio Spurs are playing the Houston Rockets. And this is a game where, it's hard to bet unders in games with blowouts. I just want to double check my numbers here. I ran this a little bit earlier, but if you look at all the games in the NBA this season that finished with the winning team winning by 10 points or more, the over is 85-69. That's a 55% win rate. Now, that's not enough where I'm telling you to go blindly bet every over in a blowout game. And in fact, I'm going to bet the under here, and I'll tell you why in a second. It is enough, though, that we should talk about it. It's worth pointing out, and you've seen me write or talk about it before. However, in the context of this game, I'm going under. We've talked about the Knicks and how good the Knicks are against bad teams, and the Rockets have been profiling the same way. Ime Udoka has brought a slow-paced style of good defensive basketball to Houston. They're the second slowest team in the league, even second slowest at home, and they get teams to play slow with them. That allows them to play their best defense. That allows them to really maximize what they're able to do. They have an offense where they grind out possessions. Alperen Şengün is a great player to have in a slow half-court offense, and that's what they use. The rest of the team is really athletic. They've done well defensively here. Now, the Spurs are one of the faster teams in the NBA, but they play slow against slow teams. It's a young squad without a true point guard. It's hard for them to come in, especially as underdogs, especially against quality veteran teams, and really dictate the style of those games. You go back and look, generally under against some of these better teams. So I expect tonight to be kind of an ugly game. It's going to be slow. I think this total is high because, when I look at this, if I take sort of the average pace of the Spurs, average pace with the Rockets, put it together, I get to this number of 223. If I take my pace and push it more towards Houston, again, a team that plays slower, generally plays more deliberate and slows their opponents down with them, I only have this at 219, 220. So 223, even 222 if this has moved a little bit. Too high for me. I'm happy to take the under there. And again, if you're looking at 222 or worse, I'm sorry you missed it. But again, another reason to get into an FTN Bets Discord. You get all those bets immediately. That way you get the best of the number if they move and you don't miss on anything. Again, if this is 221, 220, let it go. If it's 222 or 223, bet the under. And again, make sure you sign up for that Discord. You'll get this as early as possible and you don't have to worry about missing it. Last game here that I have a bet on for, and I've got two actually in this game. A rare double bet game for me. I usually try to pick one angle, but in this matchup of the I'm sorry, that is the bet. Let me start with the game here. There we go. Sorry. The Utah Jazz at the Oklahoma City Thunder got a little mixed up there. The Jazz visiting Oklahoma City, they are 12.5-point underdogs. The total is at 234. And I guess I already spilled the beans a bit. This is a smash spot for the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is a great basketball team. It is deep. They play hard every night, especially at home. Again, similar to what I talked about the Knicks usually or the Rockets earlier. Certain teams just play better against bad teams. They don't play down to their level of competition. They don't leave anything on the floor. They don't try to rest starters and things. And that has been the Thunder's MO for years, and I expect it to continue. They have absolutely destroyed some of the worst teams in the league this year. Just want to double check again. I ran some of those numbers earlier. They're 14-7 this season, but they have a 5-0 record against bad teams, or what I deem to be bad teams. And apologies to Bolts fans. Thunder smashed you twice. The Pistons, the Spurs, and the Blazers. And again, only 5 games. They've generally played really good competition, but in those 5 games, they've averaged 124 points against their opponents' 99. Now, it's not that linear. I don't expect the Thunder to win this by 25, but I have this closer to 15, 16 points and even deeper. I mean, I really tried to dial it back and, out of respect for the market. And again, with these big spreads, it can be tough. I generally don't lay points this big. If you've been following me, I very rarely, if ever, lay a spread bigger than 9 or 10. It's really tough for me to wrap my head around that. But this just does seem like an ultimate smash spot for the Thunder, who will score a lot of points. And I also think keep the Utah Jazz from scoring a lot of points. The Jazz are sort of in a delayed tank here. We thought last year was going to be the down year after they, stripped apart the entire old regime. Conley out, Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, all out the door. But a surprise. Lauri Markkanen plays really well. Jordan Clarkson enjoyed having more minutes. The team in general looked kind of fun early in the season. Struggled in the second half of the year, but Markkanen ended up being most improved player. And they came into the season, I think, a little more optimistic than they should have been. And it has been bad. Even when the team is healthy, they have struggled, and tonight they are not. Markkanen is out. Walker Kessler is out. John Collins is questionable, leaning towards out. I don't understand how this team is going to be able to match up with the Thunder at all, especially when some of these backups come in here. You look up and down these games, they have not gotten close to this number. I'm sorry. They've gone under this number by 5-6 points in their last 5 of their last 7 games. And the 2 games they went over, it's by 1 and 2 points against teams that really pushed the pace. One of them was an overtime game. So unless we can avoid overtime, which I don't expect to be a problem here if the Thunder are going to win by 15, I really don't see how the Jazz get over this team total of 110. I had this closer to 107. So really like all those angles there. Again, those are the 5 games I bet. We have 8 other ones. I'll quickly touch on them, try to give you some help in case you are looking or have some thoughts there. Cavaliers Magic, the Magic 2-point favorites at home, the total at 225. Just too much injury news here. Don't know if Evan Mobley's playing or Jalen Suggs is playing. Both are huge pieces for their teams, and they play much differently. If both players are in, I'll probably find myself on an under if it stays, close to that 225. But if both are in, I expect that total to drop. So again, keep an eye on that FTN Bets Discord. I'll add anything there if I do play it. The Washington Wizards are 11.5-point underdogs in Philadelphia tonight. The total of 242.5. This game is real simple. Joel Embiid is questionable. This is the kind of game where the Sixers bench him, and I think he's going to be out. And if that's the case, I'm not laying 11.5 points with the Sixers, and I promise you I am never taking 11.5 points in a full game. I don't care. You could offer me 20 points in the Wizards in the full game. I'm not going to do it. They are tanking just unbelievably. The fourth quarters have been brutal, so nothing I can see myself playing here. Raptors and New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson's listed as questionable, but Tom Thibodeau's been on the record the last 2 days as saying he's playing. I wonder if that's why this number's a little kind of out of whack. I would expect the Knicks to be bigger favorites if Brunson plays, but we'll see if once he's officially announced if that moves. Again, maybe the market just lagging a little bit there. Kind of lean towards an under here, but the Knicks now are without a big piece. Mitchell Robinson looks like he's going to miss 8 to 10 weeks, and he is a huge engine for that team, not only cleaning the boards on defense, but getting extra possessions and extra points with his work on the offensive boards. Still looking into some stuff. Might add some Jakob Poeltl overs. Again, I'll put that in the Discord. Keep an eye for that, but nothing for now. Dallas Mavericks are 2.5-point favorites in Memphis, and again, kind of similar to the Denver game we talked about. 2.5 of the Mavericks seems kind of easy, but you look at the injury report, several starters are out for the Dallas Mavericks. They're looking ahead. They've got a game tomorrow at home against the Los Angeles Lakers, and man, you can't get any lower than the Grizzlies at this number. They've been bad. They have not covered, but at a certain point, the market moves too low, and this might honestly be it. And, if I really had to bet anything, it would be Memphis, but I don't have to bet on anything, and neither do you, so let's not do that. The Minnesota Timberwolves play the New Orleans Pelicans. Pelicans are 3-point favorites. Again, a really messy injury report. Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels are questionable. If both are out, I might wait and play Minnesota, depending on what that number gets to. Minnesota matches up well. The Pelicans are big, but so is Minnesota. And if that game gets a little bit ugly, again, it'll be tough for Minnesota to do it without many of their guards. But this could just be a bigs on bigs matchup. And if that's how it goes, Minnesota has the quality in the front court there. So may end up with the Timberwolves. We'll see how that goes. Chicago Bulls at Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks are 11.5-point favorites. They were 9.5-point favorites and 10.5-point favorites in their first two games against Chicago. Covered both numbers easily. The market makes them an even bigger number. It just makes a ton of sense. And as much as Chicago has been playing better without Zach LaVine, things just look more comfortable there. They are not ready to cover even this big of a number against the Milwaukee Bucks. The Brooklyn Nets visit the Sacramento Kings. Show a little value on the Nets, but the matchup is hard, I think, for maybe a model or a projection system to understand. If you look at the Sacramento Kings, they are a team that's small. They play fast and generally beat teams except big teams. They've gotten thrashed by the Pelicans 3 times this year and a couple other teams that have better big men. That is not the Brooklyn Nets. The Brooklyn Nets are a very similar team to Sacramento, maybe a little better defensively, but worse offensively and worse overall. So it seems like a Sacramento matchup, but the number is a little too big. It's 4.5. I had this closer to 2. So lean Brooklyn, but again, the matchup is really messy for me. And the final game of the night, the Portland Trail Blazers are 13-point underdogs against the Clippers. I thought about betting an under here, but as we talked about earlier, in a blowout situation like this, it's generally over or pass, especially with a Portland team that hasn't really quit in the fourth quarter. And again, I said, teams generally do in the regular season, but some of these young teams really push. These guys are trying to get minutes, and the team knows they can tank and lose games anyway without slowing their guys down. So I think maybe, if this game starts out, the Clippers have a big lead, maybe look towards a live over, a fourth quarter over, something like that. But nothing for right now. I do make the Clippers big favorites, but not even 13, and I'm definitely not taking them with Portland. So some messy games there. Again, those are the 8 that I am not betting. However, let's quickly touch on the bets I did make. Pacers, -7. Like them to bounce back tonight. Charlotte Hornets, their team total under 108.5. Think they struggle against Miami. The Nuggets, just the first quarter. That full game could be messy, but I like Denver with Jokic playing all 12 minutes there, as he always does, to win that first quarter. Under in the Rockets. Spurs, again, could be a blowout, but the Rockets generally do it with defense. So like the under 223, and again, on the move a little bit. So 222 or higher. If it's lower than that, apologies, no bet there. But again, keep your eye on that number. And then a couple bets in this Oklahoma City game. I'll lay the 12.5, even 13.5. And I hate late and big numbers, but the Thunder look good tonight. And then a team total under the Jazz, again, playing that Thunder team. Really struggle to see how they get 110 points. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Glad we were able to get through all that in just under 20 minutes. Again, thumbs up, subscribe to this channel. Would love a comment letting me know how I'm doing or what we could be doing better. As always, you can read Hoops with Noops Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday on FTN Bets. And I will be back on Friday for another video preview. Best of luck, and I'll be in the Discord until then.